They laughed when the lawyer said my name. To Indy Carlisle, he read pausing, like the words themselves were a mistake. One envelope. The room went quiet for a heartbeat, then my father chuckled low and sharp, like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. Well, he said, raising his glass, guess the prodigal finally gets what she's worth. Everyone laughed again, everyone except me. It wasn't the money that stung, it was the look in his eyes, that cruel satisfaction of watching his own daughter shrink. I should have walked out, but the envelope in my hand was sealed with wax marked by 3 letters I hadn't seen in years. A.C. Alan Carlisle, my grandfather, and beneath it 4 words written in his hand. Words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. Duty transcends blood, Indy. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a loss. It was an assignment. Boston, early December. Snow drifted across the porch of the Carlisle mansion, settling over oak-paneled walls and frosted windows that blurred the silhouettes inside. The sound of a cello floated from the parlor, elegant but hollow, like the echo of a life performed rather than lived. My father's funeral felt less like a farewell and more like a celebration of reputation. Politicians, journalists, old allies, they came not for him, but for the name Carlisle. I stood in the corner with a cup of cold tea, watching the room from behind the veil of my own detachment. My mother adjusted her black dress, as if she were hosting another gala. My brother Nathan, ever the rising politician, moved through the crowd, with the ease of a man shaking hands with his future donors. Every word he spoke dripped with ambition. Dad devoted his life to service. When the music stopped, the family lawyer, Mr. Wallace, cleared his throat and began reading the will. The rhythm of inheritance was predictable estate to mother company shares to Nathan until he paused. To Ms. Indira Carlisle, 1 envelope sealed and handwritten by Commander Alan Carlisle. The whispers spread like static. Nathan smirked. Guess he thought you'd appreciate something sentimental. I said nothing, but the laughter that followed cut through me like winter air. I opened the envelope with steady fingers. Inside lay a single plane ticket from Washington, D.C. to London, dated 1997, marked with a faint crown emblem, and words in blue ink, Duty transcends blood, AC. On the back was a small seal engraved with 3 letters, SRF. I had never heard my father mention it yet. The symbol stirred something familiar. Nathan leaned in, his voice smooth and venomous. London. Maybe you'll find yourself a duke who can tolerate you. Laughter again, sharp, rehearsed, merciless. I tightened my grip on the ticket. If my grandfather had truly left me a mission, I would find it, even if it meant crossing an ocean to do so. Duty transcends blood, he'd written. Maybe he was right. Maybe duty weighed heavier than love ever could. And then I saw it, the SRF insignia, the same mark I'd once glimpsed on an old diplomatic file at the State Department. My pulse quickened. Whatever this was, it wasn't sentimental. It was unfinished business. 2 weeks later, I was back in Washington, sitting behind my desk on the 7th floor of the State Department, the floor people called the graveyard of forgotten files. The hum of old fluorescent lights filled the silence as I typed 3 letters into the search bar, SRF. No results. Only one archived folder appeared locked under heavy encryption and stamped, Top Confidential, Lost Carlisle, 1997. I printed the file header and took it across town to the British Embassy. The archives there smelled of dust and rain-soaked paper. Behind a desk stacked with folders, an older man looked up from his reading glasses when I showed him the page. Graham Whitfield. His expression shifted from polite indifference to disbelief. My God, he muttered, tracing the faded seal. I haven't seen that mark in 30 years. When I asked what it meant, he hesitated. SRF, he said finally. Sovereign Remembrance Fund. It was real. He told me the fund had been a post-war collaboration between the U.S. and the Crown, a project led by my grandfather, Commander Alan Carlisle, to support veterans who slipped through bureaucratic cracks. But by the late 90s, it was frozen classified reasons, internal disputes Carlisle family involved. My throat tightened. My father, I asked. Graham sighed. He signed the freeze order himself, said the fund was a financial risk. The room shrank around me. I remembered my father's voice, cold and steady, years ago. Service means knowing when to stop serving. I had thought he was talking about retirement. Maybe he was just talking about erasing someone else's legacy. When I stepped back into the wind, outside the chill felt personal. Graham called after me as I left the gate. If you want the truth, find Lady Eleanor Whitmore Windsor. She was the last one who worked with him. On the metro ride home, my phone buzzed. A single email flashed on the screen from an untraceable address. Stop digging into SRF. You're stirring ghosts. The train lights flickered, and for the first time, I felt like one of those ghosts had started to follow me. That night, the apartment in Arlington felt too quiet. I pulled my grandfather's old keepsake box from the closet, the one my mother had told me to throw away after he died. Inside lay a tarnished metal, a wristwatch stopped at 11:11, and a small notebook, its edges charred as if rescued from a fire. The first line written in my grandfather's hand made my pulse stall. If she ever reads this, it means the silence lasted too long. Beneath it was a map of Europe marked with red dots, Windsor, Berlin, Prague, and a symbol of two clasped hands overlaid on both flags. I photographed it and sent it to Graham. Hours later, his voice trembled over the phone. That's not a charity symbol, Indy. It's the insignia of Operation Bramble, a classified joint relief mission your grandfather led. So the fund was real, I said. Real, he replied, and dangerous. Those accounts were protected by both governments. If you reopen them, you'll wake the crown. I stared at the plane ticket from the will. The date printed on it matched the day my father froze the fund. Nothing about this was coincidence. Just before midnight, another email arrived. No encryption, just plain text. If you're reading this, they're watching again. Don't trust anyone in D.C. Come to Windsor. Bring the letter. Bring the key. Signed only with two initials, E.W. I froze. The key, I didn't have one. But as I closed the notebook, something small fell onto the floor. The second hand of the broken watch had come loose. Beneath it, hidden in the casing, was a tiny silver key engraved with a crown. I sat there, breath caught in my throat. My grandfather hadn't left me a token. He'd left me directions. I zipped my suitcase before dawn, the ticket still warm between my fingers. If duty transcends blood, I thought then maybe it's time to find out what kind of blood I carry. Outside, a car engine idled in the darkness. Through the thin curtains, I saw a man in a black suit looking up at my window. His phone screen glowed faintly, and for a split second, I recognized the emblem reflected in the light. The State Department seal. Rain trailed the plane windows as London appeared beneath a gray sky. At Heathrow, a driver in black held a sign, Ms. Carlisle, Lady Whitmore's order. He said little during the drive through Windsor Great Park, only that Lady Eleanor's been expecting you. Inside the manor, warmth met me with the scent of Earl Grey and mint. A tall woman with silver hair studied me. You look just like him, she said. Except you question too much. I knew she meant my grandfather. I served beside him Operation Bramble. She told me he'd created the Sovereign Remembrance Fund to protect a royal child he'd rescued during the war, hiding the truth behind the name of charity. When peace came, he vowed the fund would continue under whoever understood the meaning of service. From a cabinet, Eleanor took a sealed iron box. Only bloodline and duty shall unlock. My silver key fit perfectly. Inside lay a letter. If she ever doubts her worth, remind her that silence is not weakness. AC. Beneath it, a treaty bearing both the U.S. and royal crests confirmed the fund's authority could only be renewed by Alan Carlisle's living descendant. Your father wasn't meant to touch it, she whispered. He diverted the assets. And now someone in America is reopening them. She handed me an old phone. One message glowed, "The Crown is aware." My chest tightened. If my father had betrayed the fund, Nathan might be continuing it. When I left Windsor Airport, headlines blazed. Carlisle Holdings announced as main donor for Nathan Carlisle's campaign. The name matched the fund's frozen account. The betrayal wasn't history, it was alive. The next morning, I returned to Windsor's Royal Archive. My key opened a drawer marked, Carlisle Allen, Operation Bramble. Inside were letters, a photo of my grandfather shaking hands with a young Eleanor, and the original SRF treaty signed by Queen Elizabeth II and Alan Carlisle with my father's signature slashed out. A second note slipped free, written by him. If the Crown demands oversight, I'll close the fund. No Carlisle will be chained to silence. He'd used SRF for personal gain, then buried it. I copied the documents and showed them to Graham. He trembled. This could destroy your family. Maybe it already has, I said. As I left, a man across the street lowered his newspaper. Graham called after me, then the line cut. That night, an email arrived from unknown@crownmail.uk. Stop. The Royal Fund is not your inheritance. Outside, a car with no plates idled under the streetlight. I opened my grandfather's notebook. Truth always costs Evie. The question is, who pays for it? I packed the files and messaged Nathan. Meet me in Georgetown. It's about Dad. As I boarded my flight home, the attendant smiled. Ms. Carlisle, you've been upgraded courtesy of the Royal Embassy. If they were watching, so was I. Rain hammered the tarmac when I landed in Washington. By the time I reached my car, my phone was vibrating with alerts. Return for internal inquiry. Your clearance status is under review. They knew I'd crossed a line. That night, Georgetown glittered with donors and cameras for Nathan's campaign fundraiser. I walked into the Four Seasons still-soaked trench coat dripping onto marble floors. Nathan's grin faltered when he saw me holding a folder stamped with the Windsor seal. Back from your royal vacation, little sister? He sneered. I dropped the documents on the dinner table between champagne glasses. You might want to read this before you keep talking. Gasps rippled as I spoke. This is the original agreement between the U.S. and the Crown, signed by Grandpa and forged by Dad afterward. Silence fell heavy. Nathan dragged me into the corridor, his face pale. Do you realize what you're doing? Fixing what you broke, I said. When he snatched the folder, a loose page slid to the floor. The crowd saw the wire transfer stamped, Carlisle Holdings, Nathan Carlisle Campaign Fund. Someone whispered, Is this real? Nathan slammed the table, shouting, It was fake. Mother cried, This isn't how family acts. I looked at her and said, Maybe that's the problem. We only act like family when it's convenient. By morning, every network headline screamed our name. Royal Fund fraud tied to U.S. campaign. Carlisle dynasty under investigation. The State Department summoned me. A senior advisor leaned across the table. Protect your family or your name, you can't do both. Then I'll protect the one that still means something, I said. Halfway through questioning, a message flashed from Lady Eleanor. They're erasing the SRF files. Check your father's old archive. I left without permission, drove straight to the Carlisle house. In the basement, the silver key turned inside a rusted cabinet. Inside a flash drive labeled Ghost File, SFs 97. Thousands of entries appeared, withdrawals from SRF deposits into Nathan's committee, one final payment to Windsor for silence. The glow from the screen lit my hands. I wasn't sure if I was exposing my father, my brother, or myself. I sent one copy to Lady Eleanor, another to the Washington Observer. If truth destroys us, I wrote then, we weren't worth saving. Moments later, an email arrived, Ms. Carlisle, the Crown will attend your congressional hearing tomorrow. Capitol Hill glimmered wet under storm clouds. Reporters filled the marble steps shouting my name as news tickers blazed Carlisle investigation to address Royal Fund scandal. I climbed the stairs in a navy blazer, the State Department pin cold against my lapel. Mother wasn't there. Nathan wasn't either. The hearing chamber buzzed under harsh lights. The chairman began. Are you claiming your family embezzled a joint fund with the British Crown? My voice was steady. I'm not claiming. I'm proving. I placed the authenticated Windsor Treaty on the table, its seal, and Eleanor's letter unmistakable. Then the doors opened. A British delegation entered, led by Sir Edmund Fairchild. Cameras erupted. The Crown confirms Commander Alan Carlisle as founder of the SRF, he announced, and we appoint Ms. Indy Carlisle as its rightful director. The room erupted in noise. Before the applause faded, FBI agents escorted in Graham Whitfield. My chest tightened. He leaked classified records for profit, Sir Edmund said. Graham's voice cracked. I did it to expose the truth. The words hung like ash. When the gavel nearly fell, another voice cut through. Nathan stood at the back, pale, trembling. She's not the traitor. I am. Cameras swiveled. Dad made me do it. He said it was the only way to keep our name alive. He walked out before anyone could stop him. The chairman turned to me, final words. Ms. Carlisle. I faced the rows of strangers, their eyes a mix of judgment and pity. My grandfather taught me that service doesn't end when the uniform fades. It ends when we forget why we wore it. Applause broke the silence, faint at first, then growing. As I gathered my papers, Sir Edmund handed me a sealed envelope embossed with a royal crest. From Her Majesty, he said softly. She said you'll know when to open it. 3 days after the hearing, Washington had gone quiet, though the pressure hadn't lifted. In my small apartment near Capitol Hill, every channel replayed the same headline: Carlisle investigation exposes cross-Atlantic fund misuse. Lieutenant Indy Carlisle, named whistleblower and heir. The royal envelope still lay sealed on my desk, wax stamped with the crown and signed ER. I broke the seal. The handwriting was unmistakably regal. Miss Carlisle's service is never convenient. Your grandfather understood that loyalty to truth outweighs loyalty to lineage. As of today, the Sovereign Remembrance Fund shall be reactivated under your directorship jointly with our government. You have our gratitude and our trust. Elizabeth R. Tears blurred the ink before I could finish. The phone rang State Department headquarters. Director Carlisle, we'd like you to lead the Transatlantic Veterans Initiative. I laughed softly. Director. The word felt foreign heavy earned. By dusk, Nathan appeared at my door, no tie, no arrogance. They'll come after Mom, he said. I told him I never meant to hurt her. He asked, was Dad ever proud of us? I answered quietly. He was until we stopped earning it. That night, beneath 2 flags flying side by side, I signed the papers reactivating SRF. Sir Edmund's voice echoed, in honor of Commander Alan Carlisle, his granddaughter now carries both flags. My mother stood in the crowd, hand over heart, and for once it was real. 2 months later, the investigation closed. My father died before trial, a stroke they said pressure finally catching up. Nathan accepted a lighter sentence and a lifetime ban from politics. As for me, Congress honored my name for exemplary integrity in public service. At my father's funeral, I stood apart in my white Navy uniform while the others wore black. Rain streaked across the marble headstones. My mother approached, voice trembling. He read your testimony before he died, she whispered. He said, tell Indy I finally understand. I closed my eyes. The rain hid everything else. After the service, I returned to the old Carlisle house. Behind the library shelves, I found a wooden box locked with a crown-shaped keyhole. Inside lay a photo of 3 generations, grandfather, father, and me, and a note in faded ink. If she ever finds this, tell her I tried. No excuses, just confession. At the new SRF office in Arlington, twin flags hung side by side under a plaque reading, Service Beyond Borders. I placed the photo between them. Every name here deserves more than a medal, they deserve memory. Before leaving, a letter waited on my desk from E.W. Your grandfather's last chess move was trusting you to play the endgame. You did. That evening, I drove to Arlington Cemetery. Beneath his stone newly engraved, Commander Alan Carlisle, duty transcends blood. I set the silver key down. Mission accomplished, Grandpa, I whispered. But the service goes on. 1 year later, the Sovereign Remembrance Foundation thrived in Richmond. Sunlight glimmered on the glass walls, and in the lobby hung 3 portraits side by side. Alan Carlisle, Indy Carlisle, and Queen Elizabeth II. As I walked the hallway, I heard the soft hum of conversation, the laughter of young staff, the steady rhythm of purpose. Nathan appeared holding a new folder. The housing project in Norfolk's ready, he said. Good, I answered. You'll oversee it if you'll trust me. I already did by asking. We shook hands, imperfect but sincere. Back in my office, my assistant handed me an envelope sealed with Buckingham's crest. Inside, a single line gleamed beneath the royal invitation, in memory of those who served quietly. The crown was calling again. I stepped onto the balcony as sunset painted the twin flags in gold. The wind carried a voice I'd long known by heart, my grandfather's calm and steady tone. Some legacies aren't measured in wealth. They're measured in who you become when no one is watching. My hand brushed the insignia on my chest. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was peace. I hadn't inherited fortune. I'd inherited meaning.